Thanks for joining us. You're watching Eye on Africa here on France 24. I'm Julia Kim. Here are the headlines on the continent. Zimbabwe's doctors defy a government ultimatum to end their strike. They're demanding a pay rise in line with the country's soaring inflation rate. Cameroon's president frees main opposition leader Maurice Kamto from prison. It comes after a series of conciliatory gestures to calm the deadly insurgency in the country's Anglophone regions. And over 1,000 people recover from the Ebola virus in DR Congo as access to vaccines and screening processes improve. But Doctors Without Borders warns that the epidemic is far from over. Now, they were ordered to go back to work or face disciplinary action, but doctors in Zimbabwe have rejected the government's ultimatum, and now the national doctor strike is now stretching into its 6th week. Physicians last week turned down a 60% pay rise, saying it was well below the 400% increase demanded. Zimbabwe is grappling with its worst economic crisis in over a decade, with hyperinflation sending the price of goods soaring. France 24's Ryan Truscott is in Harare with the latest on the situation.
Well, I was speaking to one doctor who told me that the hospitals are unusually quiet at the moment, and that's because many families realize there's no point in going because they'll find almost no doctors there, although there are a small number of army doctors who've been brought in. So empty wards are certainly the case with Harare's hospitals, although in the second city of Bulawayo, I understand that some doctors are still reporting for work. There are some harrowing tales emerging. I heard from one man who took his elderly mother to Parinetwa, the main public hospital in Harare. There weren't any wheelchairs for his mother, who had a broken ankle, so he carried her into the hospital on his back, and she was told to return in 2 months' time because there were no doctors to attend to her. The doctors say that they do want to work, but they simply can't afford to. They say their monthly wages barely cover the cost of their fuel to get to and from work.
So a really grim assessment there at the moment. But what are the doctors saying is the way forward? And is there any hope then that this standoff will be resolved soon?
Well, there's still a lot of acrimony between the doctors and the government, so it doesn't look as though there will be an agreement anytime soon. The Hospital Doctors Association says its attempt to negotiate higher wages has been met with intimidation and threats. They had been threatened with disciplinary action if they failed to report for duty today. We don't really know what that means. Will they be sacked? Will their wages be docked? What the doctors are saying is that they want their wages linked to the US dollar so that each month whatever they are paid will keep pace with the price rises in the supermarkets and at fuel stations. But I think even the doctors realize the government isn't going to be able to afford to do that. So today the Doctors Association was appealing to the World Health Organization, to NGOs and Zimbabweans living abroad to support a fund that can be responsible for paying the wages of the 1,800 doctors who are in government service.
Now, Cameroon's main opposition leader, Maurice Kamto, has walked out of jail a free man after President Paul Biya ordered his release. Saturday's conciliatory gesture is one of several surprise moves aimed at calming a deadly 2-year insurgency in Anglophone regions. Last week, President Biya announced the liberation of some 300 alleged rebels, with another 102 prisoners also set to be freed. Nicolas Germain reports.
In recent weeks, there have been several important political upheavals in Cameroon. On August the 20th, one of the most powerful Anglophone separatist leaders, Julius Ayuk Tabe, was sentenced to life in prison. But 3 weeks later, President Paul Biya said he was organizing a major national dialogue to find a solution to the Anglophone crisis. Since 2016, nearly 2,000 people have been killed in this conflict, according to the UN. On Thursday, Biya stunned many when he announced the release of 333 prisoners close to the separatists. Another surprise on Saturday, when 102 members of the opposition were released, including their main leader, Maurice Kamto. He was arrested in January during a peaceful demonstration.
I'm sincerely touched by your support and your love. I thank you. There is no other word. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I told you that I would never betray you.
The This analyst says the aim of the releases is to ease tensions in Cameroon, but it was not Biya's only reasoning.
By taking these decisions, the president steps back into the limelight because everyone has been commenting on his decisions and neglecting the national dialogue. In this way, he comes back to the center of the Cameroonian political system.
Some experts say international pressure from the US and the EU also encouraged Biya to make these concessions. The 86-year-old president has been in power for nearly 4 decades.
Well, let's take a look at some other news across the continent. Tunisia's parliamentary elections have ended with no party winning enough votes to form a government. Exit polls show that the Islamist-inspired party Ennahda won the largest number of seats, while Kalb Tunis, the party of jailed presidential candidate Nabil Kawi, came in second. But both parties took well below the 109 seats needed for an absolute majority. Closed-door negotiations are already underway, even ahead of official preliminary results, which are due on Wednesday. A presidential runoff is set for this Sunday. 13 people have died after a migrant boat capsized off the coast of Lampedusa. The Coast Guard said that more than 50 people were on the vessel, most from Tunisia and sub-Saharan Africa. None of them had life jackets when bad weather struck. A number of children are still missing. Officials believe the boat had begun its journey in Libya, stopping in neighbouring Tunisia before heading north to the Italian island. According to the UN Refugee Agency, over 1,000 migrants so far have died this year trying to reach Europe from Libya. The son of South Africa's former president, Duduzane Zuma, took the hot seat in the so-called state capture inquiry. The investigation is looking into claims of systematic corruption during Jacob Zuma's 9 years in power. His 35-year-old son denied facilitating millions of dollars in bribes between the wealthy Gupta family and politicians. Duduzane Zuma worked closely with the Indian-born brothers. They're accused of using their friendship with the former president to win state contracts in the years before his ouster in 2018. Now, the Congolese government and Doctors Without Borders have confirmed that over 1,000 people have recovered from Ebola. The virus has killed over 2,000 people since August 2018, but better access to vaccines and improved screening processes have led to a reduction in new cases. But the NGO has warned that the epidemic is far from being under control.
In the early morning, Congolese school children are among the first to arrive at the busy Mpondwe border crossing. But before they can head off to their school in neighbouring Uganda, they disinfect their hands with water mixed with chlorine and have their temperature taken to check for symptoms of Ebola. Precautionary measures like this have been in place since August 2018, when a new Ebola epidemic broke out in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Normal days, we always screen around 6,000 to 10,000 travelers.
At Nyabugando Primary School, there are over 150 students from DRC, more than 10% of the school's population. It has set up an Ebola task force to educate children and communities about the virus and preventative measures.
We are always washing our hands, and we don't just welcome visitors. Before we welcome them, they first go for the checkup. When they check up them is when they come back at our home and welcome them as visitors.
The task force also seeks to increase awareness amongst parents.
At the beginning, some of the parents, those parents from Uganda, had a negative attitude, saying that those children from Congo will affect their children. But after teaching them the procedures which we normally follow, then we had to come to a resolution, and that one ended.
East Africa has been on high alert since the outbreak was declared in the eastern DRC provinces of North Kivu and Ituri. Instead of closing its border with neighbouring DRC, in this part of Uganda, the focus is on disease checkpoints and education, with an aim to spread knowledge rather than the virus.
And finally, South Africa will play against Canada in the Rugby World Cup this Tuesday. It's the first time in nearly 2 decades that the two sides have come face-to-face. And the Springboks are the overwhelming favourites. A win for the two-time world champions would be enough to take them through to the quarter-finals. South Africa have never failed to progress to the knockout round of the competition since their debut in 1995. Here's what Captain Siya Kolisi had to say ahead of the game.
Physically, I feel good. My body feels good, and I'm really glad I could get a lot more minutes, as you know, because I've been injured for quite a bit. And yeah, the form is getting better and better. You know, I put a lot of pressure on myself, and I expect a lot of myself. So I'm always, you know, looking for work on the field to do a bit more. Because yeah, the guys are doing well, so you know that's a contagious feeling and you want to get there, but my fitness levels have got up to that, so hopefully I can be better than tomorrow as well.
We're taking a short break. There's more news coming up shortly. Stay tuned to France 24.
Live from Paris, a debate on the big story of the day with experts, newsmakers and observers.
Lots of reactions.
Continue the debate after the show is over by sharing your views on our forums.
It's my faith and my choice. I totally checking for it.
The Debate, hosted by François Picard on France 24 and France24.com.